Well, on the map, I would like to show it's not far on the southern part of Cappadocia, in the territories of Nide, where we have this French excavation, Porsuk. The excavation director will be with us, Claire Barra, of l'Institut Français des Études Anatoliennes d'Istanbul. And then we have another excavation in Tuyana, which is a Turkish excavation nowadays. And it's also very important, of course, especially in terms of early Byzantine archaeology of the region. And the third excavation is a new one, a very important one, is actually a Höyük site, a mount site, again in Nide territories, which is Knik Höyük. And the director will be with us too, or maybe he's now with us. So these are all we have actually for the current times, for the nowadays about the area of Cappadocia. We don't have much more than that actually. Also, we have couple of rescue excavations done in the region, but the problem is that most of the times they do not really publish the results of their reports or their excavation, their field projects, so that we do not really have a clue about what's going on in the area. And what else we have is also a little bit of museum studies. Cappadocia is a lucky region for the recent times. Why? Because now in the region we have 3 or 4 archaeological departments with lots of young scholars in these departments who are very active in the region and doing lots of publications, doing lots of good things, very interesting projects. So some of them will be with us and will be sort of will be introducing presenting their materials. Yeah. And maybe I will tell you couple of words for the last conference. I was not at the last conference, which was 2014. Anne told me about that, and I think Anne Lamiza was in the conference at the time in Istanbul. The conference took place in 2014. That was the first conference on Cappadocia in Istanbul, in general actually. And the organizer of the conference was Olivier Henry and Axel Tibet, who actually passed away suddenly. It was a good chat. He's one of my good friend, actually, my best friend in the past. Unfortunately, he passed away last year suddenly, and we dedicated the symposium to him. Yeah, that was the first Cappadocian conference, and they published it because Oleg asked me about the publication. The publication is in internet, more or less, and the volume came in maybe two years ago or something like that, 2018. It's a volume, a little bit of epigraphy, a little bit of archaeology, site management, different aspects, and this was the first ever conference about Cappadocia. So ours is the second, and hopefully not the last. Hopefully not the last one, and that people will hate Cappadocia after this conference. I hope not. And yeah, these are all I would like to say. So if there will be any questions, very quick questions, because I don't want to speak like whole day long. This is my conference, and I don't want to dominate the conference. And just ask me just questions if you can, if you would like to ask. Otherwise, I would give the microphone to Mary, who does these things better than myself. Right. Yeah. I'm not a good person for chairing. I'm not at all. Not at all. Not at all. Yeah. Excusez-moi. Oui. Je voudrais qu'écrivez un email parce que je suis internet maintenant. Somebody's just calling me. Yeah. Is there any other question that I maybe technically, because Melih is still with us, and there are so many people that more than I estimated. So I need to, at the same time, I need to click and just get the people into the program because I didn't know that there was. Okay, yeah, yes, Anne, you're right. But I think, Anne, that was not published. Well, Anne Lamiza warned me that there was another conference in 1991. You're right about that, Anne. But I think, if I'm not wrong, was that the one which is published in Anatolia Antiqua in the first volume, maybe? Anne, is it right? Am I wrong with this? What do you think? Am I wrong? You can speak if you want. Well, you speak better than me.
Sorry. No. It was the one published by Pelon.
Oh.
And
right, exactly. Yes, Porsuk.
So it was about meridional Cappadocia, and it concerned the period between the prehistoric period to the Roman period.
Yes.
So it was the first one, actually.
Yes. If I'm not wrong, Olivier Pelon in Lyon, Maison de l'Orient, he was the one who did something, but I think that was not a real workshop. Maybe one day colloquium in the 80s, and then it was published in a part of
but it was a book. It was a book because it's a book, proceedings. It's a proceedings.
Okay. So I'm wrong then. By the way, let me just introduce you, Annie Lamize. Annie is the first person who has written an extensive work and study on Cappadocia. Would you maybe like to say a couple of words about your PhD?
But it is not published yet, and it's about thinking about the perception of Cappadocia in the Roman Byzantine sources, and also worked on the rock-hewn churches and rock-hewn tombs in order to highlight some change phenomenon on the techniques of rock-hewn process.
Great. As you say, you're right to tell that, Annie, most of the work previously were based on proto-historic Cappadocia, especially in French-speaking part of the world. They had this les époques proto-historiques de Cappadoce, since the 19th century, end of 19th century. But in some cases, I'm a little bit confused about what they actually mean and where they mean with Cappadocia at that time. So your work was one of the earlier ones, actually, about the classical heritage of Cappadocia. And that's the reason why we actually devoted this conference to Hellenistic, Roman, and early Byzantine periods of Cappadocia. So thank you for warning me. And it's great that we remember about this past times and we didn't ignore the past works about that. Yes, and if there is no other question, let me check the time, the Turkish time right now. It's like almost 10 to 10. If you would like to ask me any questions about technical details or whatever, I'll be here. If not, then I think at 10 we should start with the new session. What you think? What would you say about that? Because I think that I need to really work on the technical details right now. And yeah.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm not sure I can show my PowerPoint from my screen. How can I do it?
Yes, Athanasia, you came. That's a good question. Actually, Melih has already showed it. Melih, would you like to do this one more time?
Yeah,
so that
course.
People will have a really idea about that. What would you say?
Of course.
I think this is the best time because we have so many people right now, so that we will be sort of an access to new knowledge. Because somebody is calling me from Paris, by the way. I have no idea who. This is not Annie, because Annie, you're not in Paris, I think. So I don't know if this is Ile-de-France, but I don't know who it is. So yeah.
And I hope that this is going to work. Yes. Good morning, everybody. My name is Federico Giusfredi from the University of Verona. I am giving this presentation, which has been prepared and authored by myself and by my two colleagues, Valerio Pisaniello and Alfredo Rizza. This is a result of an ongoing European ERC project, Project PALAC, Pre-Classical Anatolian Languages in Contact. And we are going to offer some considerations regarding a very ancient toponym for Central Anatolian, which is Tabal. So we are going to do something very early with respect of the main focus of this conference. And before I begin, let me spend just a couple of words to thank the organizers of this event. and to congratulate them for having found a way to make it happen in spite of the current situation and pandemic. Very well. The title is On the Origin of an Ancient Designation of Cappadocia, Assyrian Tabal, and Allegedly Related Forms. What is Tabal? Tabal is a name, is a toponym, as an exonymic designation, a toponym used by the Assyrians to indicate a kingdom, a group of kingdom, a confederation of kingdom, or more likely a geographical area that starts to be called Tabal in the 9th century before Christ. And here you see a reproduction of a map that has been drawn by Trevor Bryce in his 2012 monograph on the Neo-Hittite states, so on the Luvian principalities and kingdoms of the early Iron Age. And you see that there is an area indicated with the name of Tabal here, which pretty much corresponds to the bank of the Köker River. And then there are other toponyms of areas that to some extent end up falling within a larger, wider conception of Tabal later. Furthermore, while no sites are indicated beyond the Köker River, recently Jules Shimon has convincingly argued that the northern border of the Tabal stretched farther to the north. In any case, what we're going to try to do first is see where the word, the noun Tabal, which is no Luvian noun, it's just attested in Assyrian, may come from, and then I will try to provide some considerations on what the original area designated with Tabal could have been, based, of course, on the interpretation of the toponym. As for the analysis of the word, a few hypotheses have been made in the past. The first one is the idea that Tabal is in fact originally a Hurrian word. It is a hypothesis that goes back to the 1980s, to the late 1980s, and namely there's a root connected to the Smith in Hurrian, which is tab, and tabli, so tab with the derivational suffix, would produce a noun indicating the land of the Smith. There are a few problems with this interpretation, and some have been
Kusura bakmayın bölüyorum ama video sanırım takıldı. Biraz durdurmanız mümkün mü? Federico şimdi chatten yazdı, kendisi live devam edeceğini söyledi.
That first of all, the form tabali.
Siz durdurun videoyu, şeyde screen'de stop sharing yapın. Federico devam edeceğini söyledi.
Tabli. Furthermore. Okay. Sorry, again, just stop sharing the screen. I will take my PDF and continue live.
Okay, thank you, Federico.
It's not a problem, of course. Sorry, I made this only to avoid internet problems, but okay. So.
Hocam, is it possible for you to stop the sharing?
Yes, stop sharing again. I will share and proceed live.
Okay, stop share.
Yeah, just do it. Very well.
Thank you.
And there we are. Share, and then sorry, Mary, I will try to keep it as short as possible now.
By the way, before you start, I'm sorry, before you start, can anybody who is not speaking, can mute their...
So,
I can't hear you.
I wasn't speaking yet. Can everybody hear me?
Okay, good.
Yes, we do.
Okay. Okay, good. So I will start again. This was the map that I was actually describing, and as you can see, the numbers from 1 to 5 indicate some of the first sites that are located in the area that originally, starting in the 9th century before Common Era, was indicated with this Tabal toponym. And well, the funny thing about Tabal is that it's not a word used by the inhabitants of the area itself, so the Luvians, to indicate their own region, but it was used by the
Assyrians. And of course, we all wondered where the word came from, because if we understand the origin, we can also understand its original meaning. And there have been a few proposals. I cannot enter too many details here, or I will, it will take too long. We do have a Hurrian hypothetical etymology, which has some merit semantically, because it would mean land of the Smith, but then again, Hurrians virtually no longer existed in the Iron Age, so there are problems of transmission, as you can see in the slide, as it has been observed by Lorenzo D'Alfonso in 2012. And also there are some morphological issues, because if the word meant land of the Smiths, we would expect some form of adjectivization or genitival form, which does not fit with the reconstruction of a word Tabal or Tabalish in Hurrian. Another etymology that has been proposed is a Luvian one, and it is based, another possible connection that has been proposed is the one with the population of the Tibarenoi, which occur in classical sources, and which may have a connection with Tabal, because they are often associated with the Moi or people or Meshech in the Semitic sources. On the other hand, their collocation would be closer to the Pontus region, so to the northern area on the Black Sea, and their exact collocation is debated. On the other hand, the connection with the Moscow, Mushki, and so potentially the Frisian area is is not very well founded actually in the sources. There have been important counter arguments by Joel Schimann, in particular that the connection with the Phrygian area and the Mushki is far from assured, that the geographical area is not correct, and that there are problems with the transmission of specific consonants in the name. Then there has been another proposal for the etymology, a truly Luvian one, which would go back to the word taparia, which means to rule, to govern, and is based on the idea that taparia in Luvian worked like the word maniachai in Hittite, which also indicates a district. This is a proposal, again, by D'Alfonso 2012, which is very fascinating and entirely possible. On the other hand, my research associate present today, Valerio Pisaniello, has investigated the occurrences and showed that this use of maniachai is attested by Hittite maniachai, but is not attested with taparia. So we wondered whether there can be a much simpler explanation, and namely that Tabal goes back to an Assyrian word, Tabalu, which is practically identical. Very well. However, the problem with this etymology, according to D'Alfonso, was that we would have to go back to a meaning dry land, which is recorded in the main dictionaries and derives from the verb from which tabalu is derived. The verb abalum means to dry out, and it is certainly connected with aridity, and the central Anatolian area is not a desert area, so this would not look very promising. On the other hand, while the verb means to dry out, the two nouns that derive from it, nabalu and tabalu, has a much more general connotation. I will again be very quick here. There is a meaning arid land or desert for nabalu, but this is very rare, while mostly nabalu means mainland, inland, riverbank, channel land, and so on. And it might even be associated to a field in at least one pretty problematic occurrence of the Neo-Assyrian corpus. The other word, tabalu, which is the one that's interesting for us, is never clearly connected with aridity, meaning mainland or border of a river or riverbank, and it is opposed to a body of water, or it is opposed to canals, so the bank of the canal or the dry land with the meaning mainland, inland. So it is not really an arid area. And this means, of course, and it is this would, of course, mean that the meaning of tabalu in Assyria is not necessarily connected with deserts or aridity whatsoever. We have also occurrences in other Semitic languages. In Aramaic, it is opposed to the sea. So the Tabal is the mainland actually. So the boat is dragged onto dry land and so on. And in the Hebrew Bible, it's very interesting. It actually indicates the whole inhabited world, and the Greek correspondence is always oikumene, so the inhabited world. So it's not a desert. It's basically the earth. Good, this is not very important. So in general, while the semantics of the base verb is dry out, the deverbal nouns, tabal and nabalu, more generally refer to the land. And we can wonder whether this word could be the base for the toponym. First possibility is that Tabalu meant the mainland, and it indicated the central part of the Anatolian Peninsula as opposed to the coastal regions that the Assyrians also knew, for instance, Cilicia. Another possibility, however, is more attractive, and it is that the word Tabalu, since it is generally used in oppositions to rivers and channels and canals, was in fact used with this meaning, so the river bank, because the first time that it is used in the 9th century, during the 22nd year of Shalmaneser's third reign, it indicated the area that was reached by Shalmaneser coming from Melid. So basically arriving from east, and on a westbound journey, Shalmaneser would have reached the river bank of the Kızılırmak, and it might have used Tabalu in order to indicate the river bank region. The geographical trajectory would be from Melid over Mount Timur to the Kızılırmak area, and this could provide an explanation for the meaning of Tabal, which of course in later phases would indicate a much larger area. I go back to the first map very quickly, but in the first occurrence that we have, he would have indicated only this portion of the central Tabal proper. And to conclude, without stealing too much time to the other speakers, former hypotheses for a Luwian or Hurrian derivation do not appear to be particularly solid. Luwian one is possible, but not certain. Hurrian one is very unlikely. While a formally perfect match with Akkadian would work very well, because there's no relationship between Akkadian Tabalu and deserts or arid lands, it may have indicated either the inlands or the river bank, and I would dare to suggest that the latter hypothesis, the river bank, the Kızılırmak river bank, appears to be more promising, and this is the references, and I almost did it. Thank you very much.
That was wonderful. You did a really great job. That was absolutely fascinating, and you were able to reorient yourself on the fly, so wonderful job. So on to the next paper, and I'll save my questions for later. And I think that I have seen that Farzad Abedi is here. Yes. Our next speaker. Excellent. I saw your face there for at least a second. Wonderful.
Hi, everyone.
Farzad, do you need to share your screen or anything like that?
Yeah, I will share my screen now. Just one
Okay, wonderful.
second.
I love your background already. So from the University of Tehran in Iran, speaking on the Magians of Cappadocia, a tradition and a relief. And it looks like you have everything under control. Go ahead, Farzad.
Yeah, thank you. Today I would like to present my lecture about the Magians of Cappadocia by comparing the tradition and the relief from the Achaemenid period. One second, yes. There are different theories about the etymology of Cappadocia word. The oldest evidence of this word is the inscriptions of Darius and Xerxes as one of the Dahyus of the Achaemenid Empire. Dahyu means the satrapy, the countries of the Achaemenid Empire in ancient Persian language. Some researchers made a connection between this word and the Luwian language and translate this word as the Law country because of its geographical location. Here, we can see the location of Cappadocia between different satrapies and provinces of the Achaemenid Empire. The territories of satrapies was changing due to the political reasons in the period of different kings. After the capture of Sardis by Cyrus in 546 BC, Cappadocia became an important satrapy of the Achaemenid Empire. According to the policy of the Achaemenid Empire, many Iranian families Iranian Knights and Iranian religious groups has been settled in different provinces of Anatolia and made new immigrant colonies. Some of persons from these families married persons from local families, and this process was the beginning of producing new multinational families in Anatolia. There are many gravestones that prove this topic, so that the Iranian population of Anatolia increased in a short period after the capture of Sardis. In this picture, we have the Altı Kulaç sarcophagus that shows an Iranian horseman or Iranian knight attacks a Greek man. We have an interesting tradition from Strabo about the religious practices in Iranian temples of Cappadocia. Strabo lives during the end of the 1st century BC and the beginning of the 1st century AD. In this time, Cappadocia was under the rule of House Ariobarzanes. At the end days of Strabo's life, Cappadocia became a province of the Roman Empire, but it still protected its Iranian religion sanctuaries and activities. In this tradition, Strabo gives detailed information about the Persian sanctuaries and Magians in Cappadocia and their religious practices in the Persian temples of Cappadocia in his time. In the first part of this tradition, as you see, Strabo speaks about the Magians and the temples of Persian deities in Cappadocia. According to a former tradition from Strabo, we know that there was a sanctuary of Omanus, Anadatos, and Anaitis in Zela, an ancient city in Pontus, Cappadocia. Omanus must be the Greek spell of Vohumana, the Iranian god of thought. Anaitis is the Greek spell of Anahita, the Iranian goddess of flowing waters. And Anadatus might be in connection with Anadata word that means uncreated. So that L.H. Gray believes Anadatos must be Ahura Mazda, the great Iranian god. There are inscriptions from Arapsun in Cappadocia that mentions Ahura Mazda as a worship god in that province. This one is a monument inscription. As you see, the name of Ahura Mazda. And this one is an inscription about the marriage of Ahura Mazda and Dana Mazda Yasnish. This evidence proves that the tradition of Strabo about the temples of Persian gods in Cappadocia must be true. The second part of Strabo's tradition is about the religious practices in Persian temples of Cappadocia. First, he speaks about the sacrifices in that temples. We know that the sacrifice of animals was an important religious practice in Iranian religion. Strabo says that in these sacrifices, the victim is beaten to death with a log of wood. We do not have information about this type of sacrifice in Iranian religion. The most famous evidence that shows the sacrifice practice in a Persian temple is the stele of Magians from Daskylium. This stele. In this stela, according to this stele, we can say that in the center of the satrapy of Hellespontine Phrygia in northwestern Anatolia, the Magians were doing sacrifices in the temples, in the Persian temples of that place. Here we can see two Magians and the heads of a bull and a ram that have been sacrificed before the prayers. These animals has been beheaded by knife so that there is no log of wood for killing them. But we can see something like a stick in the Magian's hands. This is not a stick. It is a bunch of twigs called barsom and has been used in Iranian religious practices. Maybe Strabo thought this is a stick and this stick is used for beating the victim. We have also another picture shows the sacrifice process in Achaemenid religion in a seal from Persepolis. Information about the Persian sanctuaries excuse me 1 minute, yes. About the Persian sanctuaries and the Magians in Cappadocia and the religion practices in the Persian temples of Cappadocia can be proved by another evidences also. Just 1 minute. Yes. In the continuum of the tradition, we encounter with information about a religious practice in a Persian temple in Anatolia. Strabo speaks about an altar for ashes in the temples, that the Magians must maintain an unextinguished fire there. We know that fire was one of the most sacred things in the Iranian religion. According to the tradition, the Magians enter daily the temple and continue their incantations for an hour, holding before the fire a bundle of rods. This bundle of rods is balsam that we spoke about. Strabo says the Magians wear around their heads high turbans of felt, reaching down on each side so as to cover the lips and the sides of the cheeks. This type of wearing is for preventing their breath from polluting the sacred fire. Then he says that he has seen these practices in the temples of Anaitis and Omanus. The most clear evidence that can be compared with the tradition of Strabo is the stele of Magians from Daskylium. Here we can see two Magians holding balsam and praying in front of a sacred place, maybe a fire temple. There is also the heads of two offered animals in front of them, and they are shaking their right hands, probably with saying holy words, just like the tradition of Strabo. They have also used the hem of their turban for preventing their breath from polluting something sacred in the temple. The Magians are praying for, in the temple the Magians are praying for. The stele of Daskylium is the most detailed evidence that can reconstruct the religious practice what happened in Cappadocia. Here, in continue of my presentation, we can see another relief that shows a Magian with a balsam in his hand in front of a temple. This is also from Daskylium. And we have another relief from Kayseri, Bunyan in Kayseri, that shows a Magian with a balsam in his right hand and another thing, maybe something for offering in his left hand. As you see, he has wear the turban and they were using the hem of their turban for preventing their breath from polluting the sacred fire or sacred thing that they were worshipping for. Here, in a clay bulla from Persepolis, we can see a Magian with balsam in his hand, and in front of him we can see the fire, the sacred fire, and the Magian has wear the hem of his turban for preventing his breath from polluting the sacred fire. Here also we can see the same picture, something like the former picture, balsam in hand of a Magian who prays in front of the fire. And here we can see a Magian with his dress from another seal from Persepolis. We are familiar with these Magians from another reliefs from Persepolis like this. This one is a Magian in Persian dress. This is Persian dress. And this one is a Magian in the Median dress. As you see, they use a turban, and they could use the hem of their turbans for preventing their breath from polluting sacred things. Here also in Tachara, in Persepolis, we can see both of them, a Persian Magian and a Median Magian. They are bringing animals to the palace for sacrificing. Here also. Here in Hadish, Palace of Xerxes in Persepolis, we can see a Persian Magian and the Median man who brings an animal for sacrificing. And also here, we have the pictures of these Magians everywhere in the Achaemenid Empire. Hadish also. And in the audience scene of Xerxes from Apadana, we can see a Magian here behind of the crown prince of Xerxes. But here he is not praying for any god or fire, so that he didn't use the hem of his turban for preventing his breeze. We can see his nose and his mouth. This is a relief from Susa. And these statues are from Oxus treasure in present Tajikistan that shows two Magians in Median dress. As you see, the hem of their turban has been used for preventing their breaths, and we can see barsum in their hands. In this votive plaques from Oxus treasure, we can see also this Magian guys here in a Median dress. This one is also from Oxus treasure. And here in this plaque from Oxus, we can see a Magian who is doing pray in front of a sacred thing, so that he has used the hem of his turban for preventing his breath from polluting the sacred thing. We have another inscription from Arabsun that proves the worshipping of fire that Strabo speaks about. Here we have a guy named Abba who stands before Bel and the gods and dedicated fire. Bel, someone says that Bel is the Mesopotamian god Marduk, but we have some evidence that this can be Ahura Mazda, a title for Ahura Mazda. But as the results, according to the classical text, there were important Persian sanctuaries in Cappadocia during the Achaemenid period. According to the classical text and the archaeological evidence, like the relief of Kayseri, the Persian religious practices has been done in Cappadocia during the Achaemenid period and later eras. According to the classical text, the Magians were the most famous religious responsibles in the Persian sanctuaries of Cappadocia. We have enough archaeological evidence, like the reliefs from different parts of the Achaemenid Empire, like Oxus and Persis and Anatolia, for reconstructing the attire of the Iranian Magians. These evidences prove the tradition of Strabo about the Magians of Cappadocia. The stele of Magians from Daskylium is the most important evidence that can be compared with the tradition of Strabo. By this relief, we can reconstruct the religious practices of the Iranian Magians in Cappadocia that Strabo speaks about. The religious presence of the Iranians and the details of the religious practices in Cappadocia can be reconstructed by the archaeological evidence from another parts of the Achaemenid territory. Now, we know that the Cappadocia was an important Persian religious center during the Achaemenid and Hellenistic periods. Thank you.
Thanks very much. That was great. And you finished in exactly 15 minutes. So I'm sure people will have questions for Farzad after our next talk. And I think I saw Emine on the gallery view. You are there somewhere. There you are. Excellent. So, and do you need to share a PowerPoint?
I want to share a video.
Okay, so hopefully it will work. So I will go ahead and introduce you, and if it doesn't work, we'll figure out what to do next. But so Emine Gökçe from the Hacı, Bektaş of Veli University in Nevşehir, Turkey, is going to give us a talk on pedestal bowls from Topaklı Höyük.
Sorry, Farzad, could you please stop sharing the video?
I cannot open it here. Ah, yeah, I found it. Here.
Thank you, Veli.
It has been stopped or
Yeah.
There we go.
Sanırım paylaşamıyorum. I not share video.
İsterseniz ben sizin için paylaşabilirim.
Evet, lütfen.
All right, looks like it's working.
Merhabalar. I am Dr. Emine Köker Gökçe. I work Nevşehir Hacı Bektaş Veli University Archaeology Department. I will make a presentation pedestal bowl from Topaklı Höyük. Topaklı Höyük is I am Dr. Emine Köker Gökçe. I work Nevşehir Hacı Bektaş Veli University Archaeology Department. I will make a presentation pedestal bowl from Topaklı Höyük. Topaklı Höyük is located in Nevşehir Province, Avanos District, Topaklı Municipality. Topaklı Höyük is inside the big elbow of Kızılırmak in the middle of Anatolia. The mount is located in the wide basin surrounded by a row of hills on the east and west. The mount has an round shape with its main axis of 22 meters. The edges are very steep, slightly wavy, and the upper terrace rises to the east. The Kalaycı stream, which runs through the village, extends around the mount from the west-north directions. Generally, the entire mount has been preserved. The last houses of the village have entered the archaeological layers only on the south and north edge of the base. Excavation at Topaklı Höyük started in 1967 by Italian Luigi Palocco and continued until 1974. Two excavation techniques were applied together in the Topaklı Höyük. The first one is the method of digging the mound vertically to follow the chronology of the layers, progressing step by step from the center to the outside. The floors found along the 20-meter thickness of the mound have been identified with 24 architectural building levels from the Byzantine period to the early Bronze Age. The other is the excavation, which is opened horizontal in the center of the Acropolis and aims to identify important building levels. In the study carried out in a horizontal direction, many finds belong to the Byzantine and Roman Hellenistic periods were found in an area of 1,000 square meters in the center of the mount. During the excavation works, 6 pedestal walls were identified in the mount. In 1968, FT in the excavations were carried out in Girts EM 1416. In the studies, 2 pedestal walls were identified. FT trench won the area where the pedestal walls are detected. As you go down to the lower floors, architectural structures were unearthed. However, data going earlier than the Hellenistic layer could not be reached. Therefore, it can be said that this year's excavation revealed the Hellenistic layer. FT trench won the area where the pedestal walls are detected. Incorporating pedestal wall, the max 13, the foot 7, 8, height 7, 9 centimeter, light polished surface, light red dough color, fine stone, yellow mica, and intense lime at the Hellenistic period. Incorporating pedestal walls, the max 14, 8, the foot 7, 4, height 8, 9 centimeter. Well polished surface, reddish yellow, dough color, fine stone, yellow mica, and intense lime at the Hellenistic period. Pedestal wall during the excavation in 1969 and 15 plan squares were recovered from the layers Hellenistic layer. Incorporating pedestal wall, the max 14, 4, the foot 7, 4, 8 centimeter, light polished surface, light reddish brown dough color, fine stone, yellow mica, and intense lime at the Hellenistic period. Incorporating pedestal wall, the max 15, 6, 8, the foot 8, height 7 centimeter, thin red slip, light red dough color, fine stone, and intense lime at that Hellenistic period. The year 1974 come from Topaklı Höyük excavation. The layer of the ball and the find location information could not be reached. Incorporating pedestal bowler, the max 12, 5, the foot 5, 5, height 6, 4 centimeter, light polished surface, light reddish brown dough color, fine stone, yellow mica, and intense lime at that Hellenistic period. Alternative pedestal bowl, the max 25, the foot 30, the foot 12, height 5, 6 centimeter, well-polished surface, light reddish brown, dull color, fine stone, yellow mica, and intense lime added. The year 1974 come from Topaklı Höyük excavation. Parallels of pedestal balls, Alişar. Pedestal balls were evaluated as the second of the 5 different forms given to the second half of the first millennium BC in Alişar. A large number of pedestal balls were identified in Büyükkale. These balls are dated to 6th century BC. It is seen that the pieces recovered from Büyükkale are decorated. Some of the pedestal balls are undecorated. Bossert stated that such vessels are rare in the Greek ceramics. In Comana of Cappadocia, pedestal balls were identified on the Lia 3 layer 6th century BC. During the 1954 South Anatolian surveys of Melart, a large number of pieces belonging to the pedestal balls were found. It is similar to the pedestal ball of Boğazköy. In Gordian, pedestal balls with carina were identified in the destruction layer. In Sardes, such pedestal balls were found at the Lydian level 7th century BC. Pedestal balls were found in Gordion and Sardes before the Kimmer invasion. In such ceramics are decorated with red slip and burnished in Gordion and half concentric circles in Sardes. Acem Höyük Hellenistic period pedestal balls located in Niğde Museum. Similarity can be established with Topaklı Höyük pedestal balls. The pedestal ball was found in the Hellenistic level at Portsuklu Höyük. The polished and decorated ball has a very small diameter. Conclusion: pedestal balls are encountered in central Anatolia since the 7th century BC. Finds from this period have been published. However, there is no publications showing that pedestal balls were used until the Hellenistic period. Topaklı pedestal balls come from the Hellenistic period levels. The finds of Portsuklu Höyük and Acem Höyük have not been published yet. It has been widely used pedestal balls 5th century BC. Topaklı pedestal balls are important in terms of showing that the form, which is widely used in settlements such as Boğazköy, Alişar, and Comana of Cappadocia, continues until the Hellenistic period. In decoration, it is understood that these balls were also published during the Hellenistic period, as we see in the 7th century BC forms. Thank you for listening to me.
Wonderful. And finished right on time, too. I guess it helps to be pre-recorded. Exactly. I will clap, too. All right, so I'm looking to see if anyone has a question. You can raise your hand in the participants section, or you can type that you would like to ask a question in the chat box, and then I'll call on you.
Hello everyone, I'm Emine from Università.
Or you could just go ahead and speak. That's another possibility, at least to get us started. All right. Okay. Well, let us start off. Maybe I'll ask the first question for Federico and Valerio. I don't think Alfredo is here, as far as I know. It's interesting. Tabal as riverbank. Do you think that that's a conceptually important idea, the riverbank? And because we know that at least for starting pretty early, the Mesopotamian inscriptions, they're very interested in crossing rivers. Is that part of the idea that there's some significance in the idea of a riverbank, that they would actually name an entire region after that?
Okay, well, thank you, Mary, for the question. Well, it is not easy to reply. Of course, the river and the riverbank has a big significance for the Mesopotamian cultures, and crossing the riverbank, of course, has a symbolic meaning for military expeditions. That has been a very old topos in the Mesopotamian literatures. I'm not sure how much this would apply here, because we have a geographical problem as regards the northern frontier of the Tabal. I was not able, of course, to deal with this in the short presentation. There has been a recent discussion, I think a paper by Joel Shimon appeared just 1 or 2 years ago about what happens once you cross the Kızılırmak River, if you're still in the Tabal or not. And crossing the river, crossing the Kızılırmak River does not occur, to my knowledge, as an important literary topos in the Assyrian military sources. This is, of course, potential weakness in our explanation, which is far from being the best one. I think it's just the least weak one that has been proposed so far. I think that the merit of our idea is that coming from Melin, that crossing the Taurus mountain, the landscape met by the Assyrian was probably dominated by the river, and the position of the first 5 important sites of the Tabal proper on the riverbank of the Kızılırmak may explain it. I wouldn't push the theory so far as to connecting it to the cultural importance of riverbanks to Mesopotamia, because I think it would be a little too bold. Did I reply?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, very interesting. Excellent. So then I see that Gio, forgive me, I only see the 3 letters that I'm not sure exactly.
Can you hear me? This is Georgia. This is Georgia Aristodimou from Greece.
Okay. And you have a
Hello.
question for Farzad?
Yes, is Farzad here? Hello, Farzad.
Yes.
Hello.
Thank you very much for your wonderful presentation.
You're welcome.
It's totally new material for me to say the truth, and it's very fascinating seeing all these reliefs. You totally convinced me. However, let me ask you, do you see them continuing into the Roman period? Do we have some kind of such evidence? What happens after the Hellenistic period?
Yes, in classical texts, we have traditions about the continuing of this process, the presence of the Magians and the continuing of the Persian religious practices in Anatolia, especially during the rule of Pontus Kingdom, in the territory of the Pontus Kingdom, and in Western Anatolia, because after the fall of the Achaemenid Empire, we have semi-Persian families in Anatolia that they ruled for a long time, different provinces in that big territory. But after the fall of the Achaemenid Empire, some new gods has been produced, like Artemis Persica, Persian Artemis. I think the process of the presence of the Persian religious families in Anatolia concluded to producing new Anatolian Persian or Greco-Persian religions in the Hellenistic period. Achaemenid period is the beginning period for this process, but we can see the results more in the Roman period, especially in the period of the Roman Empire. We have its evidence from classical texts and archaeological evidence both, and in numismatic evidences we have different coins from different parts of Anatolia that shows Artemis Persicae or other Anatolian Persian gods, and it shows combined religions, a combined religion in Western Anatolia especially, and of course in Eastern Anatolia we have it more than its West.
Okay. Thank you. It's the religious syncretism that we know during the Roman Empire. Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, and Tomas, you have your question?
Yes, thank you. So thank you, Farzad, for your presentation. My question is regarding the relief from Kayseri.
Yes.
What do you think about the dating of this relief? Because in literature there are at least, and even in the museum, I think it's dated to the Hellenistic period. Akurgal dates it to 3rd and 2nd centuries BC.
Yeah.
But sometimes you can find a dating for the 4th century BC, just a wide 4th century. Do you have any thoughts or any information that I might know of that about dating?
We have a big problem with the Achaemenid period, that the dating of some things like this that don't have any inscriptions is very difficult, because the Achaemenid period has many factors of the former art. In Achaemenid period we have many implements from the former art and the later art, so that we cannot make a certain date for this relief, but we have similar reliefs and similar pictures in the Achaemenid period and Hellenistic period. For example, in Kizgapan, now if you let me, I want to share my screen again. Excuse me. Here we can see a dress. This is a Magian dress, and the Magian doesn't wear it completely, as you see here. Here also, the hands are out of the dress. And in the relief of Kayseri, we can see the same picture. We can see the same dress. This is the Median dress that can see it from Achaemenid period to the Hellenistic period. For example, from Gizgapan in northern Iraq, we have a grave in that grave we have a relief like this, 2 Magians in the front of a sacred fire, and they wear a dress like this, Median dress. But making a dating is very difficult, because we don't have any inscriptions here, and we know that Cappadocia was an important religious center in Achaemenid period and also after the fall of the Achaemenid period. Strabo lived during the beginning of Roman Empire in Cappadocia and the rule of the Ariobarzanes house. So that the Achaemenid Empire has fought for a long time in the period of Strabo. But he says he has seen these religious practices in his time, so that we know these religious practices and the presence of this syncretism continued to the Roman Empire, to the Roman period. So that I don't have any idea about this, and I think it is very difficult.
Well, thank you. Yes, I'll. Yeah. So the relief might.
Do you have
might
any
as well
idea about this?
No, no. I was just wondering because I have never read, and I as far as I understand, this relief was just found out of context as a surface found or as a spolia. So we don't have a date for it. But I was just interested, maybe whether you have any extra information.
What about Dastilion? We know that it is from Achaemenid period.
Yes, yes. For Dastilion, we know that it's 5th century, somewhere in the 5th century, so that there's no problem with that. But iconographically, this is very similar. But we have the information that you've talked about the continuation of the cult into the Hellenistic times and maybe even further. Well, thank you.
Sure, you're welcome.
So we do have 2 more minutes. Does anyone have any questions? I can come up with a question for you, Emine. I'm interested in what do you think the significance is in these relatively late finds of these pedestal bowls? What would you like to argue why is it useful to know that they continue into the Hellenistic period?
I didn't understand your question completely. Please explain it more.
I was talking to Emine, asking her about her bowls.
I understood. Okay.
They are important,
okay.
or why they're important.
Again, please.
I was wondering, what is the significance of finding those pedestal bowls dating so late to the Hellenistic period? What would you like to do with that information that you presented to us?
I don't know.
Yeah, okay. Well, so it's 1 a.m. my time. So it's noon your time. And I guess I'll call that session to an end and let you take over, Ergun.
Thank you.
Hocam sesiniz yok hocam.
Mary, thank you very much. First of all, that was really, really great job that you did. But maybe should I help you for translation to Emine? Do you think this is necessary? Because she didn't really understand you. Emine, sana Mary diyor ki bu bulduğun parçalar neden önemli ve niçin hani onları Helenistik döneme tarihlemek hani biraz sanki daha mı erkene çekmek lazım gibi bir soru sor. İstersen birkaç bir şeyler söyle.
Evet hocam, aslında çok enteresan bir konu. Comana Höyük hem yakın çevresinde Boğazköy, Alişar'da 7 ve 6. yüzyıl, 5. yüzyıla kadar iniyor. Ama burada Helenistik tabakada ve 1968'de ve 9'da üst üste aynı tabakadan ele geçiyor. Bunların önemi bu geleneğin işte ve perdahlama ve astarı bezemesi ve formuyla Helenistik dönem içerisine kadar devam etmesi. Bunu da nereden görüyoruz? Porsuk Höyük'te de var. Aynı tabaka, gene ayaklı kaseler ve çalışılmamış henüz bir bilgisi yok ama Acem Höyük ayaklı kasesinde de aynı durum var hocam. Yani devam etmiş ve bence çok önemli bir konu. Bu bölge için yayınlanmamış, çalışılmamış, üzerinde durulmamış. O yüzden çok önemli bir konu.
Bence güzel bir şey yaptın Emine. Well, let me just translate it, what she says. What she did was, as she explained it extensively, she sort of reanalyzed all the finds from the past Italian excavations in Topaklı Höyük, which has been excavated during the late 60s and beginning of 70s in Central Anatolia. And the material has been stored in the museum. And she went there and then she's restudied all the material. And what she says is that those items came exclusively from the Hellenistic layers through the Italian notebooks at that time. And that was the reason why she actually dated them into exclusively to Hellenistic period. But I do see here that we have a very important participant from Kirkenes. If he hears me, Geoffrey Summers, one of our old friends from 1990s, beginning of 1990s, from the British Institute, who excavated in the area for a long time. I was actually wondering if he has that type of material in Kirkenes at that time, because I do remember to have seen lots of shards in the depot in Yozgat at that time when we visited him in 2001. So what would you say about that?
Okay, hello from Mauritius and the tropics. So I'm the other side of the world to you. We don't have any of those sorts of pedestal bowls from Kirkenes, or if we do, we haven't been able to recognize them. But I should also say that we really have very little pottery from Kirkenes. The main excavations have been in the city gate and a big monumental entrance to the palace quarter, so we don't have a great deal of pottery, but I haven't seen those sorts of bowls. I can also tell you that there is about to be published in Basor a considerable study of these sorts of bowls from Gordian, which compares the Phrygian and the Achaemenid versions of those bowls. I can't tell you what it says, but I know that that's either impressed or about to be impressed.
Yeah, exactly. Gordian is the key word. I think what they did until now is just the best, I would say, in the area in terms of like comparison and everything. And you also publish a lot, of course, from the region, but as you say, the pottery is not as significant as Gordian. But Gordian is the key word. I wish we would have somebody from there to compare the material from their Höyük side, especially. So thank you very much, Mary, again.
So Ergun, should we?
Oh, yes, okay, exactly. I'll tell you. The next one will be Athanasia. Athanasia is already here. She's from Athens, and why don't you sort of?
Okay, so we can start with Athanasia. Hello.
Hello.
So would you just like to start then, Athanasia?
Yes, I'll try to share my screen. Renamed Hierapolis, that means sacred city. The date and historic circumstances of this name change are unknown. Nevertheless, researchers have unanimously accepted the view that the new name was given by the last kings of Cappadocia, Hellenos. A re-examination of the surviving sources provides, in our opinion, enough evidence to disprove this view and enables the dating of the name change in the 3rd century BC. Numismatic sources, the Artemis Stavropoulos coin. At the end of the 19th century, the distinguished numismatist and coin collector Imhoff Bloomer, I'm sorry, Dr. Lafli.
Hello?
Do you hear me? Excuse me, do you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay. At the end of the 19th century, the distinguished numismatist and coin collector Imhoff Bloomer attributed a bronze coin featuring Artemis the deer hunter, Artemis Stavropoulos, now in the British Museum, to the 1st century BC Ariobarzanes dynasty of the Cappadocian kingdom, suggesting that it was issued by Ariobarzanes II or his successor Ariobarzanes III. The coin features on the obverse a male head with a beard, wearing a felt cap known as tiara, pointed at the back, with cheek flaps. The obverse depicts the Greek goddess Artemis standing right, left near the back of a captured stag, and grasping it by the antlers. Behind her, the monogram ER is inscribed. Later on, Imhoff Bloomer revised his opinion. He suggested that the coin was issued by Hierakomi in Lydia in the 1st century BC, which was renamed Hierokesaria in the imperial period. He presented the following arguments in favor of this view. First, the monogram ER appears on other issues of Hierakomi Hierokesaria. Second, the reverse type of the coin resembles that of some issues of the Lydian city dated to the imperial period. The iconographic theme of the deer-killing Artemis, Artemis Elaphoktonos, is better known in ancient literature as Artemis Stavropoulos. Hierokesaria was a cult center of Artemis Stavropoulos. As regards the tiarated head on the obverse, he assumed that it depicted a Persian priest, a magus, responsible for the cult of Artemis Persiki. The British Museum specimen bears the same types with a coin in cabinet de medailles, which the numismatist and collector Alberto Simonetta, in his revised catalogue of the Cappadocian coins, classifies in the bronze coins of uncertain attribution, possibly Cappadocian, presenting no arguments in favor of his view. This paper aims to show that both coins belong to the same coin series and were issued by Ariarathes III, who through his intermarriage with the Selevkid royal house could claim an equal status with the Hellenistic kings. Ariarathes III is identified with the first king of the Cappadocians, who according to Strabo had annexed Catalonia to Cappadocia and as a consequence had extended his rule over the religious principality of Comana. Ariaramnes and his son Ariarathes III are the only Cappadocian rulers who issued bronze coins in their name, full or abbreviated, together with the name of the mint that issued them. Ariarathes III in particular struck coins at the settlements Tiana, Anissa, Kibistra, and in the Strategia Morimini. Respectively, he could have issued coins bearing the abbreviated form of the toponym Hierapolis. Ariarathes III of Cappadocia wears this kind of tiara on coins that bear his name. According to a classification of tiara types depicted on coins proposed by von Goll, this type of tiara appears in East Asia Minor and Asia after circa 260 BC and identifies those that wear it as local kings according to the Achaemenid models. The pointed tiara appears only on bronze issues, which were destined for local everyday exchange. Consequently, its appearance on coinage should be interpreted from the viewpoint of the natives to whom these issues were addressed. It seems that in less Hellenized areas of the Hellenistic Asia Minor and Asia, rulers preferred to portray themselves with the tiara of the local ruler, which as a Persian symbol of royal office was regarded a better means to promote their independent regime to their Persian subjects, the end recipients of the bronze coinage. According to the literary sources, Hierokesaria in Lydia was not the only town where the statue of Artemis Stavropoulos was venerated. Literary sources provide us with a set of localities in eastern Mediterranean where Orestes and Iphigenia transferred the image of the Tavrian goddess from her sanctuary in Tavrian Chersonesus and established her cult. Comana in Cappadocia is one of them. Artemis Stavropoulos was assimilated on the one hand to the Persian Artemis Anaitis, and on the other hand to Ma, a local Anatolian deity whose cult centered around the temple at Comana. Hierokesaria is not the only town which used the iconographic theme of Artemis Stavropoulos on its coinage. Although rare, it appears on the coinage of other cities as well. It seems that there was a Hellenistic kini regarding religious iconographic themes. Religious centers which shared common or related cults could use the same iconographic types. For instance, themes from the iconographic cycle of Artemis that feature on the coins of Hierokesaria in Lydia appear also on the bronze coinage of a later Cappadocian king. The renaming of Comana to Hierapolis, epigraphic and literary sources. The attribution of this coin to Ariarathes III and the consequent dating of the name Hierapolis in the 3rd century BC is contradicted by the widely accepted view that the town was renamed by the last king of Cappadocia, Archelaus. Furthermore, it is believed that the refoundation of the city with a new name went together with a grant of city status. A re-examination of the related argumentation disproves this theory. First, the ethnic Hierapoliton or Hieropoliton and institutions of political organization are documented for the first time in the 1st century AD. However, this is only a terminus ante quem for the renaming of the city and the introduction of city institutions. Second, Archelaus was honored by the people and council of the city as Ktistis, which means founder, and Savior, which means and Soter, which means savior. For this reason, it is assumed that he refounded the city, gave it city status, and changed its name to Hierapolis. However, the honorary epithet Ktistis does not imply the grant of city status. In Hellenistic diplomatic language, It was used to honor a king for his benefactions towards the city. These could include the grant of some privileges, like the right to strike coins, or financial aid in the expansion, restoration, and rebuilding of urban sites, usually after a disaster. Even if Archelos introduced in Comana Greek institutions of local self-government, this doesn't mean that the city was given a new Greek name. Name change and city institutions doesn't necessarily go together. 3. Describing Cappadocia, Strabo states that Comana was a considerable city, but afterwards he writes that Cappadocia has no cities. His contradicting testimony has been interpreted as evidence that the status of Comana changed in the 1st century AD when Strabo wrote his geography. However, research has shown that his geographical work is a mosaic of information coming from different sources, which date back to many different periods. He did not revise and update the material he collected. As a result, his work is full of anachronisms and inaccuracies in matters of administrative geography and toponyms. Furthermore, these new Greek names that monarchs conferred on some ancient cities as a dynastic name or descriptive title seldom prevailed against habit and history. The old native names tend to survive, and this might account for Strabo's silence. To sum up, the existing literary and epigraphic evidence should only be considered as a terminus antequem for the renaming of Comana to Hierapolis. It is quite probable that its name changed sometime before the 1st century AD. The renaming of other religious principalities into Hierapolis. 3 ancient native priestly states of major importance in Asia Minor and Syria were renamed Hierapolis by the first Seleucids. These are Hierapolis Bambiki in Syria, Hierapolis in Phrygia, and Hierapolis Kastabala in Cilicia. Bambiki in particular was renamed Hierapolis by Seleucus I during the years 298 to 294 BC. Regarding the other two, the date of their name change is a matter of conjecture. Nevertheless, the renaming to Hierapolis was a Seleucid practice. To recapitulate, since when Imhoff Blumer assumed that the coin with a bearded tiarated head belonged to Hierapolis Hierokestaria in Lydia, several pieces of evidence came up that permit the revision of his attribution. There is sufficient evidence to suggest that the coin in question was struck by Hierapolis III, the first king who annexed Cappadocia to Cappadocia and reigned over the age-old priestly state of Comana. We know that he issued bronze coins for Tiana, Anissa, Kivistra, and Morimini in order to pay the rations of the guards stationed there. So he probably did the same for Comana. The fact that Comana was also a significant trade center of the wider area makes it highly probable that the coin series was issued for the needs of the local market. Other coin issues of Hierapolis III with Greek iconographic types. Alberto Simonetta, in his revised catalogue of Cappadocian coins, attributes to Hierapolis III 2 bronze coins with Greek iconographic types. Both bear coin legends with the name Hierapolis and the royal title. The first coin features on the reverse the type of Apollo Toxotis leaning on a tripod. The pointed tiara and the direction of the ruler's head on the obverse is similar to that on other coins of Hierapolis III. The iconographic theme of Apollo Toxotis leaning on a tripod was a personal type of Seleucus II. Many Seleucid mints coined silver issues with this type, among them some mints at the neighboring to Cappadocia, Cilicia. The same types appear also on the silver coinage of Seleucus III and on the bronze coinage of Antiochus III. Due to the fact that Antiochus III issues with this type were bronze, therefore destined for local use, we may draw the conclusion that the type of Apollo Toxotis was introduced in Cappadocian coinage during the rule of Seleucus II or Seleucus III. Both were contemporary with Ariarathes III. In general, Apollo is associated with Mithras, the Persian sun god. In Cappadocia in particular, Apollo was assimilated with a local god who was considered ancestor of the Cappadocians. According to Strabo, Comana maintained a temple of the Cappadocian Apollo, which was held in honor throughout the whole of Cappadocia, the Cappadocians having made it the model of temples of their own. Introduction date of Greek cults in Comana. 3 Greek iconographic types were introduced in the Cappadocian coinage during Ariarathes III rule: Artemis Stavropoulos, Athena, and Apollo. The fact that they appear on bronze issues with local circulation implies that in the mid-3rd century BC, these Greek deities were considered by the natives as the interpretatio Graeca of local gods. And then next slide, please. Slide 13, thank you. Some pieces of evidence indicate that the initiative for the assimilation of Greek to local deities did not belong to the Ariarathids. It is probably dated to the time of the Seleucid rule over Cappadocia and Cappadocia, before the establishment of the Cappadocian kingdom in about 258 BC. First, Artemis Stavropoulos is a typical Macedonian military goddess who was considered to protect the Macedonian army. Its cult was disseminated in the east by the Macedonians, and epigraphic evidence documents its association with the Seleucids. In short, its worship in Comana indicates the presence of Macedonian army. Second, according to Strabo, the Cappadocian Apollo was worshipped with the epithet Archietis, which means ancestor. His cult, having originated from Comana, was disseminated throughout the Cappadocian kingdom. On the other hand, the Seleucids claimed their descent from Apollo Archietis and considered him as protector of Greek colonization in the east. In conclusion, we have a Seleucid cult of major importance, assimilated with a local cult, and spread from Comana throughout the Cappadocian kingdom. Please return to the slide number 13. Thank you. On the Cappadocian coinage, the local deities are depicted with Greek iconographic types. There is no syncretism in their representation, contrary to the representation, for instance, of god Min on the coinage of Pontic Kingdom. To sum up, the cults of Artemis Stavropoulos, Apollo Archietis, and Athena associate the priestly state of Comana with the Seleucid dynasty. Artemis, Apollo, and Athena are the principal deities of the Seleucid dynasty, represented on its early coinage. This evidence, combined with the fact that the Seleucids ruled over Cappadocia and Comana from 294 to circa 258 BC, leads to the conclusion that these cults were introduced as the interpretatio Graeca of local deities during the period of Seleucid sovereignty. Could we see, please, the last slide? Thank you. In this context, the refoundation of Comana with the name Hierapolis must have taken place as early as the era of Seleucid rule in Cappadocia. The Greek name did not mean the introduction of Greek institutions of local self-government. The Seleucids probably demonstrated their ergotism towards the priestly state, as they had done towards other temple states in their empire, for instance towards Hierapolis Bambiki in Syria. The reliance on the support of the non-Greek local aristocracy was clearly a crucial element in their attempt to maintain control. The Greek name Hierapolis, like the Greek name Metropolis, which was given to 3 cult centers of the mother goddess in Asia Minor, just rendered in the Greek language the particular nature of this settlement, while simultaneously enrolling it in the ranks of other large indigenous priestly states in Asia Minor, whose Greek names lent them a veneer of Greekness. Finally, Ariarathes III bronze coinage, despite its local circulation, bears Greek inscriptions and features Greek alongside local types, indicating the introduction of Greek cults and the beginning of the Hellenization of the Cappadocian kingdom in the 3rd century BC.